Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. So now guys, a lot of you would have made the erroneous though honest mistake that Malam Buhari was referencing Aisha when he said his wife belongs in the other room. You'll recall that infamous comment that he made a few years ago now, that his wife belongs in the other room. But when he said that, he did not specify which wife belongs in the other room. Now, Malam Buhari, of course, has two wives. Aisha, the public face of that couple, the one that they put forward. But then, of course, Yemi Osinbajo, the side chick, he also has an equal say in that menage a trois, in that trilogy. So now, which wife belongs in the other room? As guys, I bring you this. Buhari will run Nigeria from London hospital, Osinbajo not in charge. A headline attributed to the presidency. So the total emasculation of the Nigerian vice president has now reached its final stage. They've stripped this man of his suit and put him in a dress. This is now what we're seeing. They're turning, I'm saying they're turning, they have now effectively turned the Nigerian vice president into a lady boy, because of course the constitution does require, but then of course the devil is in the detail. The president is out of situation, and of course there has to be somebody in charge of the ship that is Nigeria. But again, Buhari will run Nigeria from London hospital, Osinbajo not in charge, a headline attributed to the presidency. So now let's now see now how they explain this. President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday sparked yet another round of controversy over his foreign trips, failing to hand over power to his vice president in an apparent disregard of the Nigerian constitution. Mr. Buhari departed for London on a medical vacation to his UK doctors overnight, a trip that should have required a transfer of power for the duration of the 2 weeks it was scheduled to last. The Nigerian constitution required the president to formally communicate a vacation or similar trips that will take him out of the country for long to the National Assembly, which would then allow the vice president to play an acting role. Yet, the president failed to relinquish presidential authority to Yemi Osinbajo, fueling fresh concerns that he had failed to learn from past controversies over similar trips. Presidential media aide Garba Shehu said it was not warranted for Mr. Buhari to transmit power, even though his principal travels to the UK for medical reasons. He, Buhari, will continue from wherever he is, Mr. Shehu said during an appearance on Channel's Tuesday. The requirement of the law is that the president is going to be absent in the country for 21 days or more. So that should be if. So let me read it as it should read rather than how it is written. The requirement of the law is that if the president is going to be absent from the country for 21 days or more, then that transmission is warranted. In this particular instance, it is not warranted. Mr. Shehu maintained that no laws were broken by not transferring temporary power to Mr. Osinbajo in the president's absence, adding that Mr. Buhari is expected back in the country in the second week of April. He insisted that the president was not sick, rather he only traveled to the UK as part of routine medical care. Mr. Shehu's comment failed to clarify Mr. Buhari's apparent disregard of the Nigerian Constitution. Section 1451 of the Nigerian Constitution says, whenever the president is proceeding on vacation or is otherwise unable to discharge the functions of his office, he shall transmit a written declaration to the President of the Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives to that effect, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, the Vice President shall perform the functions of the President as acting President. Mr. Shehu's claim of 21 days window for power transfer was a false interpretation of Section 1452 of the Constitution, which says, in the event that the President is unable or fails to transmit the written declaration mentioned in Section 1 of this section within 21 days, the National Assembly shall, by a resolution made by a simple majority of vote of each House of the National Assembly, mandate the Vice President to perform the functions of the office of the President as acting President until the President transmits a letter to the President of the Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives that he is now available to resume his functions as President. Contrary to Mr. Shehu's claim, the Constitution said Mr. Buhari must first transmit a letter to the Parliament whenever he is embarking on a vacation in order to allow his Vice President to take charge. It is only when the President fails to transmit such communication within 21 days that the consequences of the National Assembly passing a resolution to give the Vice President presidential authority would kick in. The Constitution was amended following the stalemate created by former President Umar Yar'Adua, who had similarly failed to transfer presidential authority to his then Vice President Goodluck Jonathan, despite being on a sickbed in Saudi Arabia for several months. Mr. Buhari's so-called medical vacation came at a time when the National Association of Resident Doctors threatened a nationwide strike effective Tuesday, April the 1st, after the federal government failed to meet the doctors' demands. Vice President of NARD, Aromi Adejo, in a recent media interview said the government failed to honor an agreement reached with doctors at a meeting 3 weeks ago. The doctors demanded the immediate payment of salaries the government owed to House officers, including March salaries, before the end of business on the 31st of March 2021, immediate payment of salary arrears, including March salaries for members in federal and state tertiary health institutions, and an upward review of the current hazard allowance to 50% of consolidated basic salaries of all health care workers, and payment of the outstanding C-19 inducement allowance, especially in state-owned tertiary institutions. So there you have it. The last bit, of course, is to do with the politics of union, etc., which is also pertinent. But the real thing is, I've been saying this in countless videos, and we see it all the time. The Buhari regime is not ruling the country. I'm not saying governing, by the way. I am choosing that word, ruling, advisedly. The Buhari government is not ruling that country according to any constitution. They are ruling it according to Fulani customs and norms. So it's a Fulani system that supersedes the Nigerian constitution. We see this constantly. So the Nigerian constitution, because the interpretation is quite deep, the words, it's a black and white situation, as is often the case. It's a black and white situation. The constitution requires that if you are going on a vacation, then you temporarily transfer power, the authorities of your office, to your vice. And if you don't do that within 21 days, if 21 days elapses without you still not doing that, then the institutions of state, the Senate, etc., the state houses, the federal houses, would then force that matter to ensure that that is the case. So the Constitution at its first instance makes that insistence, and it goes on to enforce it that within that 21 days, because the requirement, by the way, is not that you have a 21 days window to transmit, but it says you have to transmit immediately, and if that has not happened within 21 days, then the matters will be forced. So it's not saying you have to transmit within 41 days. You have to understand, because the devil, as always, is always in the details. So it's not saying you have to transmit the powers within 21 days. It says you have to transmit the power immediately immediately is the word. Let me see if I can go back up to see where that thing was quoted, just so we're clear on it. It says section 1451 of the Constitution says whenever the president is proceeding on vacation or is otherwise unable to discharge the functions of his office, he shall transmit a written declaration to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So it is quite clear. It is not saying when you are ready, if you get round to doing it in your own time, we know that you're a busy man and we know that you're an 80-something-year-old man who has dementia. The Constitution does not say any of that. The Constitution says if you are embarking on a private trip, or you are, imagine for instance, you are the manager of an office and you are going on leave. Are you then going to say that whilst you are on your vacation in Rwanda or in Swaziland or in Switzerland or in Germany or wherever it is that you have gone to, you will still continue to manage your team from your sun lounge bed on the beach? Is that what we're saying? No, that doesn't stand to any reason or logic. No, when you are going on a vacation as the manager of wherever it is that you are managing, the authorities automatically transit to the deputy, to the vice manager, to the assistant manager, and all managerial interactions goes through that assistant manager until such a time that you return from that vacation to resume your post. It's just standard. There's nothing, because you have to understand that even the president, the prime minister, the etc., even the president of a country is still a civil servant. A president, because a government employee is serving the civilian. So then that is essentially what a civil servant is. The president of the country is still a civil servant, and all of the rules of employment still applies, and the Constitution is quite explicit. But then of course the Constitution and the Fulani ways are always at loggerheads, and the Fulani ways will always supersede the Constitution within the Nigerian space. Conversations in the comment section. And by the way, if this was Obasanjo and Atiku, this would not have gone down this way, because Atiku has the cojones, he has the bravity, and he has the standing as an alpha person to assert the fullness of the the constitutionality of his position. But Yemi Osinbajo, a law professor, by the way, this is the person we are talking about, the person interpreting law to a law professor, Garba Shehu, he can barely even speak English, never mind having an education. And the person that is telling to sit down there, this is why I started off by saying that they have completely emasculated Yemi Osinbajo. The person that Garba Shehu is quoting law to is Yemi Osinbajo, a law professor that used to lecture at the foremost university in Nigeria, UNILAG, married to the Awolowo family. This is the person that a person called Garba Shehu is interpreting law to. This is the situation that we have in Nigeria. So when I say that they have emasculated totally Yemi Osinbajo, you can see it for yourself. So this is not me just casting aspersions at the guy or trying to diss him or anything. This is just a factual statement. And if I'm also saying that the Buhari regime functions because they've never respected any court judgment, they don't care for anything called the Nigerian Constitution. If the Nigerian Constitution aligns with the Fulani interest, then that is well and good. But if the Nigerian Constitution does not align with the Fulani interest, then they just cast it aside like a used tissue. Just swipe it with the flick of a arrogant flick of the hand. Just, get out of here, you silly person. That is how the Nigerian Constitution is being treated by this especially Fulani regime that we have in situation. Come share thoughts about all this with me in the comment section. But before you come into the comment section to engage, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray. The bell button notifies you every time I drop a new video. Click on like as well, because that helps the YouTube algorithm. Once you've done all the clickings, the Constitution requires, but the Fulani rules, the Fulani ways has it differently. What say to you? So I'll leave you here. Carry this converson on with you in the comment section, but here I say peace.